Et gaff til a gaff. Et gaff til a gaff. I'm in with the till a gaff. Illy with the till a gaff. Nit gaff, nit gaff. Nit gaff, nit gaff.
So, you are living in a dystopian future. Alright guys, I've spoken a lot about conspiracy theories and I've dissed them a lot, and I'm sure the conspiracy nuts have been happily running around calling me a sellout or sheeple, or of the many terms that they love to use. You know, I'm not woke. I'm systemized and all of that. And I stand by everything I've said so far, by the way, but I will just say this one thing. Without a doubt, if you have ever believed in a dystopian future, if you believed in any of these movies going as far back as Logan's Run, right through to, I think it's Minority Report, The Matrix, obviously 1984, you know, I can't pull them off my head, but any TV series that you've watched where the world is run by stormtroopers and governments control everything and people are barcoded, anything along those lines that you've watched on TV and you've thought, shit, wouldn't that future be fucked up? Well, we're about to enter it. And this may sound like a massive contradiction from somebody who just one podcast ago was talking about conspiracy theories getting on my fucking nerves. Well, it really isn't. They are. I maintain, and I say again, that the people focusing on those things at this moment in time of the worldwide quarantine, the lockdown, the coronavirus pandemic, and the massive amount of deaths and sufferings it's caused with the COVID-19 illness, I've been focusing on the wrong thing and very insensitive to people. But you know, it's free thinking. That fact hasn't made me blind. My own grief hasn't made me blind. And the two things I want to talk about, or I'll just mention, I'll maybe get back to later, that prove to me that we are now living in a dystopian future. Not like we haven't been in the past, and that was one of the points. But without a doubt, the two things that have shown me that we are now, or if not very shortly, like before the end of this year, going to be living in a dystopian future, are, one, they're talking about tracing and tracking for coronavirus, which basically means everybody with a mobile phone is going to be expected to have a tracer and a tracker on their phone. Now, you know, we know this has been brought in a long time. That's why I always take off locations off my Google phone, because I don't want anybody to hack and know where I am. Not like I'm doing anything important. It's just a human right, an individual freedom to not have everybody know where the fuck I've been and where the fuck I'm going. I turn it on when I use it. You know, I've always had that kind of outlook and viewpoint, because it used to always, you know, bug me when I'd sit down at the end of the day and get 16 messages from Google asking me to rate all the restaurants and the places I've been to or the places I've been near. I'm like, you know, I get it. And I do like using reviews and ratings, but it just was very, very, you know, not even alarming. I was just very aware that it wasn't pleasant for me to have known that all my movements were tracked. You know, this is one of those things where people say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you wouldn't mind. But that's not really true. Sometimes it's just an invasion of privacy to know that all your movements have been tracked. So if you tell me that I can turn it off, whether it works or not, I strongly believe it doesn't. But at least if you give me the option to turn it off, then I can turn it off and not have all my movements tracked. Then I don't have to feel that my privacy has been invaded. But, you know, this tracing and tracking app that is already, you know, it's been developed all over the world. Already it's very, very, very prominent in China. You want to get on certain tube trains, you go to certain areas, you have to have this app to prove where you're going, and, you know, also to prove that you haven't got a virus, you're not spreading the virus. Same thing is being reported about in Russia. I think Hungary, they've already got that on lock, but we know that the guy running Hungary is massively right-wing. Once Bolsonaro works out that he can have this app, he'll probably start admitting that coronavirus exists, just so you can get all Brazilians to put this app on their phone, so you can have the kind of control that he wants to exert over his population, without a doubt, that's the first step. And I'll say again, I ain't saying that these steps haven't been in place for a long time. There's no two ways about it. I get it. But I'm just saying that, you know, I have a feeling for the mobile phone using population, this app is going to be expected. It's going to be the norm that you have this app on your phone. If it's not an absolute out and out requirement, like a legal requirement, and everyone is already talking about what the hell happens to our rights when you require us to have an app that carries personal data about us, our health, and our movements, and who we've been in contact with. I mean, that's insane. I mean, I don't think ever before in human history have we had that level of surveillance, because it hasn't been available. But, you know, now we do. Now we have the ability. I mean, obviously, the microchip's there. And let's, again, not play games. The microchip exists. It's being used. I think it's Sweden, where there are 70,000 people, maybe more, who are currently microchipped. I saw adverts for it in workplaces in America where they're microchipped. So, you know, obviously those guys, without a doubt, are walking around with a locator in the head, like, you know, you see in every single sci-fi movie where, you know, they put a tracker in somebody. And I go, how do they keep on finding us when we're on the run? It's like, you know, when they install that chip, they put a tracker in your brain. Well, that's what that microchip is. No two fucking ways about it. But we also know so is our mobile phone. That's why I turned the location off. I ain't been on the run yet, but I figured if I was going to go on the run, like anybody in the common sense, it'd be burner phones. Because they're going to check your last calls from the ping of the last tower anyway. So, you know, this is the level to which our privacy and our freedoms have already been given up. And we gave them up. I'll tell you all again, man, don't bullshit me like the capitalism and socialism thing. Everyone was talking about how, well, I don't be a socialist because I lose all my freedoms. Well, guess what, motherfucker? You ain't looking like you got a lot of freedom now. But this tracking and tracing thing, I think, is going to be on another level. This tracking and tracing thing is going to be on another level. You will have no privacy. There will be no privacy as to where you go. There will be no privacy as to who you meet. There will be no privacy as to who you pass by. There will be no privacy as to who you spend your time with, who you do business with, who you have social relationships with. You'll just have no privacy. End of. Because once they start collecting this data, like Facebook, nobody's ever going to give that up. It's just too valuable. Do you know what I mean? And we aren't dealing with moral institutions who are going to say, well, morally, we don't really think we should have this data, so we're going to just delete it. Do you know what I mean? There will be no Hillary Clinton, I just fucking burnt those servers and smashed that hard drive with a hammer. That shit ain't going to happen. That data is going to be out there for perpetuity like a bad tweet. You know what I mean? Or some Justin Trudeau shit. Some picture of you going to come back. Some picture of you in blackface in your 20s is going to come back. You know, like all of my radical shit will come back. All that shit's out there for perpetuity. It's going to come back. But your tracking, where you've been, what you've been doing, that shit is going to be out there and it's going to be on your app. And I don't think they're ever going to give that power up. And you are going to be tracked and traced, followed, analyzed constantly for the rest of your life. Dystopian Future 1. Dystopian Future 2, vaccine. I had to do a little bit of research because the conspiracy theorists were getting on my fucking nerves. So I spent about 15 minutes just reading one article on the Spanish flu. Found out firstly, it didn't originate in Spain. Useful to know because I live in Spain. So, you know, just one article. That's not even research, is it? Just read one article, but it seemed like a reasonably learned one. Just to get an idea of what previous pandemics looked like, so I could put this in perspective for all the conspiracy theorists who are telling me all this is unprecedented shit, when I was pretty fucking sure that we'd had 4 or 5 global pandemics over the last couple of 100 years, and this wasn't. And I didn't even dig the research as deep as I wanted to, but the similarities were there. The point I'm making is this shit can happen. It doesn't have to be part of a big fucking global conspiracy. Unless, of course, smallpox, the measles, and the Spanish flu, typhoid, and all the rest of them were. And you can believe that. And as I said, we have plenty of evidence to suggest that could have been true. Ask the Native Americans about blankets, winter blankets being given to them that are riddled and infested with smallpox, or ask the people in Tuskegee. So we know this could be the case, 100%. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to get my head around what a global pandemic has looked like on this planet in the past, if it could have been something that originated naturally, and see what kind of similarities we could be looking at now, which might mean that this isn't Bill Gates trying to invent the world with a vaccine or the results of 5G, neither of which I believe. But I will say one thing about it, Dystopian Future number 2. They are going to create a vaccine, and as far as they're concerned, the world is never going to get back to any form of normality until this vaccine has been created. Now I'm on board with the conspiracy theorists. Now you got my ear. Because I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just don't trust these motherfuckers. And the 2 examples I gave less than 2 minutes ago, I am sure, along with the other 200 I could give if I could be bothered to research, are very clear and present reasons as to why I don't trust these motherfuckers. So when they tell me stick this needle in your arm and I want to put a serum in you and it's all good and it's for your good and benefit, I have no reason to believe that. I could be a Native American saying thank you for a blanket that's going to kill me and my whole family. That's history. That's not histrionics. That's not me making that shit up. That's in the history books. I could be somebody in Tuskegee being told I'm getting treated for syphilis, whereas I'm being given a placebo because they have the treatment for syphilis, but they just want to see how this particular disease ravages and ruins and kills my body and let me pass it on or whatever else, just to study me like a lab rat. That's history, not histrionics, fact. So I have no reason to believe that when someone says to me, here's a vaccine, stick this in your arm, it's all good, it's for the benefit of you and the population of the world, that's true. I have no reason to believe that. But without a doubt, it's going to become very, very clear that you are not going to be allowed to live within the Western world, anywhere in the Western or possibly Eastern world. The majority of the commercial world is going to be very clear that you are not going to be able to live in any of these places unless you have that vaccine. So now we're getting to the conspiracy theories. Here we're getting to, now it's time to pick up your copy, dust off your copy of the Bible, and let's get to Revelations. Because if you don't have that mark of the beast, either in your phone, basically an app that says that you're allowed to buy, sell, transport, move around, get on trains, get on buses, get on planes. If you don't have that app that tells you that tells the system where you've been, where you're going, who you've been in contact with, if they have the virus or if you might have the virus, then you ain't going anywhere. Another mark that was the kind of mark that people always thought about, but a mark is a physical mark. So, for example, I remember when I was very young, when I was given the BCG vaccine, it left a scar on my arm. I've still got a scar, and I know a lot of people who said they've got a scar from a BCG, from their BCG injection. I never wanted my kids to go anywhere near the MMR, so they literally did it without our consent, because that's how they fucking do. You know what I mean? And now they're going to come with this coronavirus vaccine, and you are not going to be able to live in the Western commercial world. So whether you're in East or West, whether you're in China or Iran, Iraq, Dubai, or Northern Europe or America, you are definitely not going to be able to function, work, move around, associate, but particularly make a living for yourself as a businessman or an employee or anything else, unless you have that mark, unless you've had that injection, unless you've had that vaccine. So now I know I sound like a crazy person. But I'm just talking about the dystopian future that's here. Because for every time you watch the TV show where there are people hiding in the shadows because they don't believe or agree with what the society has turned into, and the governments are forcing people to do something that most don't really want to do, but most do because they just want to make a living and get on, that's the fucking world we live in now. Because most people will be, okay, I won't say most, I'll say at least 50% of the people who take the vaccine and have that app on their phone would prefer not to do either if they were given an alternative. Which is what I was saying about MMR. I never said I didn't want my children to get vaccinated against measles, mumps, or rubella. What I said was, having had worked in medical sales for a short period of time, short because I found it unconscionable to be selling medicines, giving doctors bribes for the medicines we wanted them to give their patients, as opposed to, them giving their patients the medicines they thought was the best for them. They were just giving them the ones that we were fucking bribing them to stick in their patient's arm with the worst side effects, or maybe the worst rates of help and recovery and good health for the patient. I found it unconscionable. I was a young man. I didn't have a lot of money, and I was like, fuck that shit. There is no way I am going to make my living going around bribing doctors to fucking give their patients the drugs that we pay them the biggest kickbacks for. So the death of these patients are on me. Fuck that. And I don't even have a high moral barometer. Do you know what I mean? As far as I'm concerned, I ain't no saint, but I was like, fuck that shit. So I have no fear, no confusion. My vision is not blurry when it comes to medicine, pharmaceutical companies, and their main purpose, which is to make money for shareholders, not to create healthy alternatives, vaccines, treatments, or cures for you. That is not their primary concern. In fact, a treatment is better than a cure because a treatment goes on for longer. That's why I stopped going to my physiotherapist and went to my osteopath. Because my osteopath's whole philosophy was, I don't want to see you more than 5 times. And by the time I've finished, I've either cured you or I've taught you how to maintain your problem and you can do it yourself. My physiotherapist had put me in his books for weekly appointments for the next fucking year. That's the difference between somebody who wants to create a cure and somebody who wants to have a treatment and make a living off of your treatment. And trust me, these pharmaceutical companies, if anything, want to make a living off of the treatment because it makes them more money. Fuck a cure. And if they know their treatment isn't particularly good or someone else has a better one, they ain't bowing out the market gracefully. They're just going to bribe whoever they have to bribe on a low level, like I was said to do when I was driving around in my car going to GPs, or on a high level, they lobby the politicians to get their, or the chief medical officers or whoever the buyers for the medical supplies are, to get their products bought and used rather than their competitors, regardless to if they know their competitors are far superior and will save 10 times more lives. They don't give a shit. Take it from me. I have no proof, but I'm going to tell you anyway. They don't give a shit. So I have no fear whatsoever in believing that those two conspiracy theories are now our reality. I mean, I do run a fucking digital marketing business because, as I said, you can't beat them, join them. You know, we gave our whole lives, all of our information to Facebook and Google so they could sell us as a product. You know, we joined these free platforms, gave them all our information, everything about us, so they could sell us as a product. So I figured, fuck it. Well, if that's the world we're living in, I might as well be on the right side of that fucking exchange. I might as well buy that information and use it to promote my businesses. That's how marketing's done nowadays. That's bad enough. Told you I never had a high moral barometer. But now we're going to be on a level of somewhere Because they were talking about different ways of doing this, and they can have a decentralized version and a centralized version. But long story short, the way technology works, even if you had a decentralized version, it's going to end up in a centralized place, right? And as they said, even if you had a decentralized version, like I don't know how Plenty of Fish works, but they kind of gave it along that kind of analogy that, you know, that dating, that Plenty of Fish, that you pass people with your phone, and then you clock, oh, that person, their absence, that they got coronavirus, and now I might have it or whatever, you know, and they work it that way. Or if you catch coronavirus, they work out who you passed, and they can contact trace and, you know, warn everybody. I mean, it sounds like a perfectly wonderful scenario. I don't have a problem with the science of it, you know, and without a doubt, I say quickly, I was so busy complaining about the way, particularly the UK and America have dealt with this, that, you know, contact tracing is what South Korea did. But the dystopian future is real. So, it looks like they finally got the virus that kills black people. Well, ain't that about a bitch? I'm trying to say that in my best Samuel Jackson voice. Well, ain't that about a bitch? I mean, like, we've grown up with these conspiracy theories, man. And, you know, as I pointed out, I think in the last podcast, we have plenty of reason to believe in them. Even up till recently, you know, French scientists were talking about using Africa as a testing ground for coronavirus vaccines. You know, just throw some shit at the wall, see who gets mutated, who dies, who lives, you know, because we, as a race of humans, as part of the human family, are still deemed as expendable. And I've never seen that more so, you know, than in the general populace right now. It's really interesting because, you know, I'm in a lot of groups, and everyone's, you know, first was just America, you know, protesting about opening up the economy. I guess the English are a little bit more reserved. So the English are not out there with their guns or whatever they would legally be allowed to carry, with placards and banners, going to, you know, town halls and complaining about being shut down or protesting Westminster, although they couldn't because it's illegal. Well, then again, I guess it is in America as well. But they are being very active on social media talking about, you know, I love counter arguments. Like, people love to come with counter arguments. Like, I'm not trying to say they're bullshit. What I'm saying is just bullshitty. You know, it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is these counter arguments to me seem like gaslighting. Like, well, we need to open up the economy because far more people die if we don't open up the economy and the poverty that it creates. Like, that just seems like gaslighting to me. You're telling me that people dying now is less important than the people who die later. Oh, and just so happens to affect you economically as well. You know what I mean? So you probably won't die now or later, but you want me to worry about the people who are going to die later as opposed to people who die now. And the only difference in between is your financial benefit. It just seems like gaslighting to me. You know what I mean? Just like a huge fucking pile of shit. You know, like, we don't know that recessions create misery, poverty, and poverty leads to death. Since this virus is killing primarily black and ethnic minority people, I will hasten to add that recessions, depressions, poverty, and adverse economic circumstances also disproportionately kill black and ethnic minority people. Yet, funnily enough, it just tends to be non-black and ethnic minority people who are arguing so vociferously for the opening up of economies. So it just really makes me think that the people talking so hard about wanting to reopen the economy because of all the worldwide calamity it's going to cause aren't really people who have worldwide calamity, poverty, and the way it's going to affect people in China and India and Africa because they make shit that we sell. I don't think that the welfare of those people is their first concern. Because if it was, they would for a start probably all buy fair trade products. They wouldn't buy products that were made off the back of the exploitation of these people. You know, if their concern of these people was actually paramount and at the forefront of their mind, then they would basically only buy the products and use the products that were created by the fair exchange of value, time, effort, etc. on the parts of these people. But I don't think they do. I think they love their £500 Nikes made in a sweatshop by somebody for $2.99. And their iPhone with minerals mined by some 11-year-old kid who had to eat grass that day and maybe only got one meal a week. I don't think they're so concerned about those people. Until all of a sudden, it became a great excuse for why we need to open up the economy. And then all of a sudden, these poor developing country people are my main concern. Their poverty is what's really driving my opinion. Fuck out of here. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's interesting though, because what's interesting to this one for me is that, you know, I well know that no one gave a fuck about the biggest humanitarian crisis in a generation in Yemen or a similar humanitarian crisis in Somalia and Somaliland. People barely gave a fuck about kids drowning, 5-year-olds drowned, washed up on the beaches of the UK trying to escape Syria, you know? So some of us thought, okay, we get it, out of sight, out of mind. These are distant places, distant people. Maybe you'll give a fuck about your neighbors, but no, apparently not. These same people couldn't give a fuck about you, whether if you're on the other side of the world in Australia, some distant part of Africa, or down the bottom of the road. They couldn't give a fuck. And they're making it very clear. They are only really concerned about themselves, their benefit, their comfort, their livelihood, their prosperity. Maybe the prosperity of their own family. Maybe they truly believe they can protect their gran. Or maybe, as my boy from university, we had this joke which went back, I can't explain. That's one of the things that I remember the tagline, but not the joke. But the tagline was, fuck off granny. So maybe the basic belief of these people is fuck off granny. I mean, I know a lot of sellers who sell their own grandmother and definitely their own mother just to make a commission. So maybe they so don't give a fuck about their own elderly. You know, they've got them in care homes anyway. So one less bill to pay. It wouldn't surprise me. And it seems very much that way. So I think a lot of these people only have one concern, which is really being fueled by the information coming out now, which is, I am much less likely to die from this shit myself. So why should it hurt my pocket? Why should keeping you alive hurt my pocket? And that's the breakdown. That's the world we live in. That's the reason why this is probably the most morose podcast. Like, this is the Jack D of podcasts, right? This is the Jack D of podcasts. Like, morose. There is no hope. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no the milk of human kindness. There's no the deep-seated, beyond all the shit, the wonderful blessing of the human spirit. There might be some Harvecker or some other shit to teach you that. I don't see it. I don't see it. I see the wisdom of Valerie. A bunch of genetically mutated monkeys, basically concerned solely with self-preservation and the exploitation of other monkeys in order to benefit themselves. And if you're lucky, a small group of their choosing. This group may be their family, but apparently in the COVID crisis, it's fuck off granny. So it's not all of your family. Maybe it's just you and your kids. And for some people, it's just you. The wisdom of Valerie. And that is what I see. That's what I think this crisis is showing. Now, obviously, not for all people. And like everything, human nature, psychology, sadly, always disproportionately blows up the negative as opposed to the positive. So I know that, 250,000 people volunteered to volunteer to help and do something positive in this crisis. And I love it. I also it's not lost on me that I'm in a lot of business groups because I run a business. And therefore, a lot of my Facebook feed comes from businesses. So not necessarily people who would chop off their granny's legs to make another fiver, although a lot of them would. But the funny thing about these business groups is that, although I know it's all a sales ploy, on the one hand, they're so busy telling you that business is about adding value. And I add value. And what I'm trying to do is add value and trying to make business this nice, cozy, comfy, fuzzy concept, which is really just like some deep Ayurvedic hippie shit. Some George Harrison on some blissed out shroom shit. That's how we do business. Yet, when given the opportunity to show that they really care about anything that doesn't directly lead to another pound in their pocket, another dollar in their wallet, another euro in their bolsillo, they fail dismally. Because they fucking don't. And then what happens is they try and spin that with some gaslighting shit. Like we ain't done been abused by a narcissist. Yo, you want to gaslight me? You're late, motherfucker. You're late. We done been abused by narcissists. I done been attacked by narcissists. So now you want to come gaslight me and tell me that, oh, no, your real concern is all the poor Indians, all the poor Africans who are not going to have their ability to make a living and are going to die in poverty because you can't buy the shit that they produce for 400 times the amount that they're paid for their work, and resell it to make yourself a profit. Then people are dying of poverty anyway, man. My brethren said that to me. I got an African brethren out here and he said this to me. He said, man, I don't want to be mean, but all this COVID crisis has done for the West is equalized it with other parts of the world. All of a sudden, people in your high street are dying. And now you give a shit. But you was never given a shit when your economic practices or political campaigns, the things that you supported by supporting certain governments, were creating this kind of crisis and detrimental, horrific reality in my parts of the world. Well, we know that goes without saying. And that's, I suppose, why I'm so surprised. Because, I had a long-standing belief that a lot of this, backing of nefarious political actions or governments, governments that had nefarious political actions in far off parts of the world was fueled by the fact that it was out of sight, out of mind. But no, because it's right here. Motherfuckers are just being told to have a little hurt on their pocket, not make as much money, and that might give the potential for a lot of other people to live. And I'm having everything thrown at me from, we're worried about the starving people in England, to we're worried about the starving people overseas, to the science doesn't back it up, to just stop it. And I tell you why I say just stop it, is because I ain't trying to say that any of that isn't true. I want to say really clearly and very, very, very simply, we don't believe you. That's my point. Everything you say could be true. But trust me when I tell you, I don't fucking believe you. I don't believe that's your motivation. Your motivation isn't the economy, isn't the poor people overseas who are going to suffer, isn't the poor people in your country who are going to suffer. Your motivation is your fucking self. That's your motivation. And like any other fucking narcissist or sociopath, or just selfish cunt, you're scrambling for reasons and justifications that look good, that stack up on graphs and pie charts and quotes and statements and reports and articles, just so you can have something to back up your selfishness. It might be selfish, but these are the reasons why. Nah, motherfucker, you just selfish. So, as I said, they finally got a virus that's killing us. Never has it been more important to follow the sagely advice of the Wu-Tang Clan and protect your neck. Like, I gotta protect my neck. You know what I mean? I want to keep on going into it, man. I'm up on 5 people who I cared about who are no longer here. There are people up on 10. So I don't get to have a pity party. I just know that I need to protect my neck and you need to protect yours too. Yeah. So, just wanted to come back to this dystopian future thing. You know, these are one of those moments where I start to wish that I had a more detail-led memory. Because I don't. I'm like officially the broad stroke guy. And I ain't mad at that, you know. I quite like myself. I'm feeling myself. You know what I mean? I ain't mad at that. I think having a broad stroke mentality, a broad stroke way of thinking about things is not a bad thing. It's definitely not being bad for me and, you know, my creativity and the way I do things. But sometimes I just wish I had, you know, better attention for detail. Because I do remember a lot of details, just like not always the ones I want. Keeping it real. But anyway, back to dystopian futures. So when I realized that we are now entering in, if we are not already in a dystopian future, I thought, well, you know, this really means I'm going to be living some of my favorite movies. Now, I've got to be honest with you. I was thinking about this even up until about a year ago, because traveling to the UK from Spain every single month and going through immigration, for me, always felt like a dystopian future. You know, certain times of the year, the planes were crowded. You were really herded through immigration like sheep, or at least towards immigration from, you know, where the planes landed, where they'd been taxied to. You hit this point, particularly in, where was I coming into? Stansted. And I'm sure it's pretty true of anywhere else, where you were just like herded through like sheep. It was like, first it was like a kind of, you know, a wide space and everyone's trying to rush past each other to get one person ahead. And then it narrows down into all of these, you know, like not barriers, but, you know, windy, I can't remember what they're called now, but, you know, basically just a windy, you know, up here, down there, the queue. That's what I'm looking for, like this long, windy queue. And then you come out the other end and then they brought in that whole automatic passport checking machine thing that you'd go through that didn't work, but you know, you had to look in your face and match your face up with their passport. And I'm not explaining this very well, but if you've ever been on a plane last year, you know what I'm talking about. And it really had that kind of dystopian future feel to it. You know, that really impersonal, detached, you are just a number, you're just a one of the herd. You know what I mean? There was nothing personal about it. Yeah, and I really had that feeling. So moving on swiftly, I decided to, this isn't really research, right? If I was going to do this research, I'd have got into the plots of these movies. And that's the reason why I'm saying that I wish I had a better memory. But I did just do a couple of quick Google searches on movies about a dystopian future. And I'm going to just call out a couple of my favorite and maybe, you know, allude to how I think they're coming true, basically. And I'll have to start off with, I should end with this one, but I'm going to start off with this one because who knows how much time I have. With Idiosyncrasy. Idiosyncrasy? Must be Idiosyncrasy. Now, I don't remember the name of the guy who stars in it. I think he also wrote it. He's a comedian. All I do remember about it is Terry Crews is in it, because Terry Crews is a legend. Whoop, whoop. playing a legendary character. And the basic premise of this movie is the absolute fucking world we're living in today. This movie, well, admittedly, I think it was made quite a few years ago. So whenever it was made, it was definitely pointing to a dystopian future, but not one too far in the future. Because it is literally the fucking world we're living in today. In fact, full disclosure, I think I came across this movie when somebody mentioned it. That fucking hell, we're living in this movie. Although I think I saw it on TV, but I don't think I Googled it or Netflixed it, but I had heard of it when someone said that. It's literally the world we're living in today. And the basic premise is people become so dumbed down. The human gene pool becomes so dumbed down that literally we are the only people left on the planet are a bunch of fucking idiots. Now, arrogant as I am, and elitist as I am, you may think, well, how can you say that? You think, that doesn't include you. Well, no, I'm not particularly saying that. I think it does include me. I got my own problems and challenges. I'm trying to be a free thinker. As I said, it's a project, not necessarily a statement. But I definitely feel that the world I'm living in, two aspects of it. Not only is immensely dumbed down from what human potential has, but more importantly and more disastrously wants to be dumbed down, is happy to be dumbed down, is happier to be dumbed down. I look at 90% of the people on this planet a little bit like a Chris Rock stand-up routine that he did. I like Chris Rock, not my favourite stand-up comedian. I think he's probably a better writer. I like the stuff he wrote for Delirious, but he's pretty good at stand-up. And one of the routines I saw him do, because I love stand-up comedy, he's talking about, now I don't really use the word, but he used the word. So he's talking about niggers. And he says, niggers like to be stupid. He says, ask one a question, and they'll be like, I don't know that shit. Like a badge of honor. Like it's a badge of honor not to know stuff. But it ain't just niggas. I have to put one in the swear jar. Well, there's two ways of looking at it. Either it ain't just zigga zigga ahs, or, which is my favorite way of looking at it, everybody nowadays is ziggers. Now, that's more likely because everybody loves to, adopt our culture, right? Everybody wants to sing our blues. Nobody wants to suffer our blues, right? A great song. Sounds of Blackness, I first heard that from. Everybody wants to play my blues, but nobody wants to feel my blues or hear my blues. Come over the words, but you get the point. So everybody wants to be us. Everybody wants to, be down with the way we are and the way we look, the way we talk. And I think I did it in cultural misappropriation, which you haven't heard yet, because I was going to put that podcast out, and then the coronavirus thing came out, and that was like, boom, 2 months gone straight. But I think I covered that in cultural misappropriation or appropriation. The point is, everybody wants to be us. And since in Miley Cyrus style, back to cultural appropriation podcast, they think us is, or the version of us they see, what they see as us is a kind of level of stupidity. It's Ali G. It's thinking that, all we do is dress in tracksuits and talk in Ebonics. So that's what they see as us. And they see that as cool. And now everyone's aspiring to this level of stupidity, this caricature of blackness that didn't exist in the first place. Because the guy you're looking at in the tracksuit who speaks in Ebonics is probably somebody, a member of Mensa with an IQ just below Einstein. But you don't see that part of him. Or you don't see his brother who's like that. Or his sister who's like that. You've already decided what you believe. And so you no longer see the things that contradict it. There's a term for that. Confirmation bias. You already decided that your view of us is Ali G. So Ali G is all you see. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'm off topic. Back to the Dystopian Future movie. So, idiosyncrasy. The world is dumbed down. Dumbed down to the point that the president, played by Terry Crews, is like just this competition bodybuilding submachine gun toting idiot who's actually still smarter than most of the other idiots on the planet. That's the fucking world we live in. I can't go any further. Just watch the movie. I wouldn't call it brilliant. It's one of those movies that makes a better point than a movie, but it sure as hell makes the point. And I'm not being funny, man. Like, when I see the fact that most people just want to believe what they want to believe, ignoring the facts, and then there's part 2, which I just started in this podcast, about people who just find the facts to support their own fuckeries because they know what they want to think, believe, and do, and they couldn't give a fuck about anybody or anything else, just totally fueled by their own selfishness, which in my opinion is a form of ignorance and stupidity. Then when I see people like that who are intelligent, so surround themselves by statistics, lies, damn lies, and other forms of bullshit in order to defend their indefensible positions, I look at that as equal levels of stupidity. Because that kind of selfishness only leads to ruin. It's ruinous not just to the planet and to others, but to your own social circumstance, which is kind of what we're living out now. So, just idiots and smart idiots. That's idiosyncrasy. Go look it up. Another one, I barely even remember the plot to this, which is odd because I was really into the comic, V for Vendetta. Now you see this because Anonymous, the famous activists or hacktivists, quite famous, they used the V for Vendetta mask, which is like a Guy Fawkes mask, basically paying homage to the fact that he tried to blow the whole fucking system up because it was corrupt. And V for Vendetta, follows that story. The comic is amazing. It's part of the period of my life when I was so into graphic novels and particularly into UK graphic novels. V for Vendetta was just, Black Britain. That's a comic I made. In a previous life when I used to make comics. Captain Britain. In fact, I actually think V for Vendetta almost came out of one particular series of Captain Britain comics where they had this guy called Jasper, who actually was like, Jesus, Dystopian Futures. This Jasper character, who was like a quasi-fascist character, I'd never thought of this before, was remarkably like Nigel Farage. Now, he was meant to be like, I think, Walter Mosley. And he was this fascistic character. It was kind of based on Thatcherism and the austerity of that period and the kind of, the right-wing fascism that went with that kind of austerity that created so much poverty. And then they had this character called Jasper, who kind of had people in concentration camps and, poor in concentration camps. But the more I look at him and think about him now, he reminds me of Nigel Farage. So that was most definitely fucking prophetic. That was Captain Britain, one of my all-time favorite comics. Jeez, I could have go find that somewhere. And V for Vendetta, I think, came from that storyline from Captain Britain and just elaborated on it. Amazing anyway. Made a great movie out of it. The kidnap and torture scene is my favorite part of that, but that's not really, relates to this, but definitely a dystopian future. Basically, to me, I suppose first I should define dystopian future. And I'll define it like this. For me, it's the opposite of what Jeremy Corbyn had as his political rally cry. Right? It's a country run by the few, for the few, fuck the many. Now, obviously, there are lots of other aspects to a dystopian future. Normally, there's a lot of science, a lot of restriction, a lot of control. But I kind of think that when you have a country run by the few, for the few, and fuck the many, the only way to do that with technology is to create that kind of subjugation, control, 24-hour surveillance, spying, brutal police brutality, stormtroopers. I think all of those things spring from the front of a society run by the few, for the few, and fuck the many. Because you have to keep the many in control. Now, we've seen examples of this. This has been seen in every fucking version of colonization ever. When a minority go to a country and take over the resources, take over the power, and subjugate the many, they have to use technology, lies, trickery, surveillance, and everything they can use, divide and conquer, divide and rule, in order to subjugate the many and keep them under control. And one of the things I think is so interesting about this corona thing is that I read a book many, many years ago by Ishakamusa Barashanko. I'm pretty sure it was Ishakamusa Barashanko. Excuse my bad pronunciation. And he basically said that before Europeans had Africans as slaves, Europeans had Europeans as slaves. And all I see that's going on now is I'm just seeing a full circle where, you know, the treatment that has been meted out to the Africans and the Indians, or the African continent and the Indian continent, by Europe is now being meted out from Europe to Europe. The European rulers, governors, used to be able to treat people far away like this, and the people who live in Europe are cool about it. But his points come home to roost now, that actually before anybody got on a boat, got lost and claimed to have discovered a place full of people and ancient wonders, they were treating their own people like this. And we had serfs, serfdom, landlords, gentry, and pretty much indentured or bonded slavery in the West. That's how the rich treated the poor. And then they found a new source of people to treat that way and got the poor behind them because he gave them something better than. I was thinking about this wonderful quote from the Mississippi Burning movie, that Gene Hackman speech, the best part of the whole movie, where he basically breaks down, his dad teaching him about racism, saying, if you can't be better than a nigger, son, who can you be better than? And that is the crux of pretty much all racism directed from misguided poor Europeans to anybody else in the world. And vice versa. Do you know what I mean? This is just about being better than someone else when you're already in the shit yourself. This is the kind of thing that Crisis, the comic, again, tried to deal with. So, without a doubt, that's what's happening full circle. It was okay when we were doing it over there, but now people are going to start to get bitchy when they're doing it over here. All of a sudden, people in England and France and Germany and America are going to start to feel what it felt like to be in Ghana or Nigeria or Delhi or Bangladesh. And you know what the treatment of the government that they sanctioned, the government that they voted for, what their policies felt like, what real life felt like under those policies. So, welcome to your own reality. Or as they say, if you can't take it, don't dish it out. The Running Man, again, amazing movie. What I liked about this one in particular was the concept of the TV show, the concept of what we're all under, which is the spell of TV and social media and distraction and lies. Also the deep fake. This guy killed everybody. He was a helicopter pilot and he murdered everybody. Or did he? So these things like the deep fake, all this stuff in The Running Man, amazing, man. Deep fakes now are just scary. Like, you can't believe anything you see. If you see yourself fucking a goat. But you have no memory of that particular activity. Do not be alarmed. It might not have been the psychedelic drugs. You probably didn't have sex with a goat. They just found a video of somebody who did and superimposed your face on it really well. And that's the world we're living in. So again, The Running Man, absolutely astounding. I'm trying not to get movies mixed up, but yeah, that's so, because again, I don't have a detailed memory. So I love those aspects from The Running Man. That's all in the dystopian future that we're moving into. Also, the poverty that you're going to find in some of the, in the places he went to while he was on the run, all in there. Logan's Run, I think, is kind of where this all starts, right? Because I started about 2 months ago saying that if this thing exists, it's probably either been created or going to be used as a fortuitous event to help population control and depopulation, which has been, on the front line of Western governmental thinking for at least the last 50 years. What am I going to say? I think I said it already. I was having a joke with my neighbor. He's Spanish speaking. And I was saying to him, because that he only gets Spanish news, that, the coronavirus is disproportionately killing black and ethnic minority people. And he was surprised. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Da, da, da. We're talking in Spanish. He's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. Da, 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 da. And then basically, I said, well, look, you won't know this because you live in Spain and there ain't enough black and ethnic minority people for that to be worth reporting. I said, whereas, I'm from that background and, so it's important for me and I've lost a lot of people. And he goes, yeah, I think this thing was made in a laboratory, guaranteed, for sure, made in a laboratory. And I said, yeah, for sure. And I said to him, I said, it probably went something like this, like, hey, we finally got the virus ready that we can use to kill the people, to take the pressure off the social services. So what we're going to do? I said, yeah. The government probably said, okay, look, we need a virus. We want it to kill the old because they're living way too long and they're costing us way too much money in pensions and health service. Oh, and while you're at it, we want it to kill the infirm because, again, they're costing the health service and the government purse way too much money. And the lab researcher said, okay, kill the old, check, kill the infirm, check, anything else? And the government official said, kill the blacks as well. throw blacks and ethnic minorities in while we're there. And if it's made in a laboratory, that's probably something like how it went. So that was a conversation we had, and I'm sure that a lot of people think that the way it's progressing, the way it's created, the way it moves, it's made in the lab. I ain't so sure. I definitely don't disagree that it could have been, would have been. I think I've had it covered that as well. They Live, actually one of my favorite all-time movies, and I think you need to worry less about the alien aspect and more about the fact that the whole premise of They Live is that aliens came to control the world and the elite sold us out. So the elite, a bit like the Stark Conspiracy, another great book by Ben Elton, the elite were like, oh, okay, you want to take over the world, no worries. Just make sure that we have a cushy position in your new alien-run world and we will help you take over the world. And then you get back to, like I said, all the subliminal messages and the mind controls and the that feed right into reality TV and the way the world is, the distractions, the fact that people are queue out, 48 hours to get the brand new released iPhone, but paying no attention to people starving to death on the other side of the world. Just that whole feeds into that whole kind of aspect. So yeah, They Live, without a doubt. Equilibrium is another one. Now that one's a bit odd. Taye Diggs and I think it's Sean Bean actually. Yeah, very, very interesting movie. I kind of liked it. Very captivating movie. Love the gun carters. Never forget the gun carters because I'm a martial artist for life, right? So gun carters are a little bit more like ninjutsu than anything else because I think a lot of other kung fu art forms like to rely on traditional weapons, whereas ninjutsu is the art of winning. So now I know a lot of ninjas are working, with firearms. So the gun carters more reminded me of that, even though kata really is, and then it goes back to karate. But yeah, man, very interesting. Now, a world without emotion, not so sure, but I definitely see the potential of wanting that amount of control over people and the way that we're being directed into living in a certain way without consent, or having the consent to certain types of behavior taken away from us. Equilibrium sort of definitely brought that out. Strange Days, Angela Bassett. Ooh-wee! One of the best that ever did it. I love Strange Days, man. I love everything about Strange Days. But what I would say about it with regards to our dystopian future, again, is more to do with the concept of media and the way media is used and the way we plug into media, particularly things like Instagram and virtual reality, which is coming. And because we feed into people, we become influencers because we feed into their lives. So we probably really ain't very far off of wanting to live up on people's experiences. That's kind of what a lot of the whole Instagram drive is. Now, the reason why people get influencer status and people want to follow these people is we want to live vicariously through their lives. And Strange Days kind of captured that and was like, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be, using virtual reality to have other people's experiences. So, from that perspective, that's one of the things we're moving into. The Maze Runner, I watched the whole of the Maze Runner, all three films, and I don't remember shit about it. That's all I can say. I remember I enjoyed the movies. I remember the first one was interesting, you know, about these kids being stuck in this thing with this test, and I remember the girls sold them all out, but I don't quite remember what the fucking point was. You know, why they were there being tested and put in a maze, and why the guy, you know, got himself put in there, and why the girls sold them out. Nah, nothing. And fun enough, I feel the same about the Hunger Games. Hunger Games for me again is just Donald Sutherland's great. The guy Philip Seymour Hoffman's great. I actually remember that because I was trying to remember his name the other day. I saw him in another movie. I was trying to remember his name. Rest in peace. And again, other than that, not really. I suppose the other thing out of the Hunger Games I remember is a little bit like The Running Man, that it shows, you know, that we probably are. I can't think of an example of it really happening right now, but I very much see us moving to a position where, you know, the need for the powers that be to control our media and get our media to totally encapsulate us and divert us from the shit they're putting us through. I mean, I suppose that is definitely happening already, you know, but not to the extent that they have to have a kind of spectacle like a battle royal or a Hunger Games or a Running Man, you know, to get everybody, everyone's focus taken. But we're not far off. And I think very soon we will be getting to the point where we have that kind of, you know, global event, you know, something, you know, quite horrific that, you know, is used to capture people's attention to help them divert themselves away from the way they're being manipulated and abused. The closest I've got to that, I suppose, is what's happening with, you know, the everyday racism. You know, divide and conquer, as I said. It's number one, it's just fucking no-brainer, right? I'm going to mistreat you. In fact, it literally goes back to that Mississippi burning thing. I'm going to mistreat you, but the way I'm going to get you to feel A, better about that, and B, ignore it, is by blaming all your woes on someone else and getting you to mistreat them. Does two things. Firstly, it means that you're not responsible for what's going on. That means that you're not responsible for taking me to task for what's going on, because I'm the reason that your life is fucked up. And it gives you someone, A, to be better than, which boosts your self-esteem, and B, someone to take all your frustrations out of, which is a good way of making you feel better, and sure as hell better that you take your frustrations out on that poor innocent person who has nothing to do with your subjugation than me, who is the creator of it and the author of it. So, without a doubt, that's really what's going on. And, you know, all the Cambridge Analytica, the Nigel Farages, the Brexits, the right-wing fascists in Hungary, and, you know, the Donald Trumpism and the fascism in Italy, and, you know, all that shit is literally about exactly this. Not that we really are going to make America great again, or make Hungary or Italy great again, or, you know, nothing to do with that. It's just about distraction from the fact that I ain't giving you shit, so I need you to have somebody to go focus and hate for all the things that I ain't giving you. Him, them, over there. So I think definitely those movies feed into that aspect of dystopian future. Minority Report. I think one of the great dystopian future movies of all time. And again, I think it's just going to be about the fact that, you know, we are all going to be fucking barcoded one way or another, whether it's little fucking flying drones, and there are a lot of flying drones are now, maybe not small enough to come into your house, but they're not far off, you know, reading our eyeballs, or whether it's going to be a barcode or a code in your phone, or like in Sweden, a chip in your hand. We're fucking pretty much there. And, you know, looking at the Tom Cruise character being on the run and the way he was being chased by, you know, those machines, that's what it's going to be like if you're not complying. So I've definitely take that as something that we're already in. Now, Total Recall, I always get confused with The Running Man. I know Total Recall is a great movie. I got 5 kids to feed. It's kind of the only thing I really remember. But, again, Total Recall, that must be the Mars one, right? Totally, ruinous subjugation, putting people's lives at risk, and sending in infiltrators to take out people who are trying to make people's lives better. All of those things should seem familiar if you have been paying attention. Now, Soylent Green. I don't know if Soylent Green can really get a posthumous. I don't know if Soylent Green can really get a posthumous. Probably can't say that word. Posthumous mention. Soylent Green is people. It's people. Soylent Green is people. That's all I remember from that movie. But just feeds back into the Logan's Run. It just feeds back into the overpopulation and feeds back into probably what we are experiencing and why we're experiencing it. I like Children of Men. I like that movie. I like Clive Owen. I think he chooses very clever movies. Now, again, I don't see there being any particularly mad drop in the birth rate. In fact, since we're so worried about overpopulation, so it would seem from a clandestine government angle, no massive drops in the birth rates and no children being born probably wouldn't be a worry for a while. So that seems to be what most people want, the situation most people want to create. But, I found that movie interesting because, again, it was a future, but with kind of real life today levels of poverty. So it wasn't like, the whole world didn't look like it was designed by Apple. It wasn't like linear block white buildings. It wasn't that kind of sci-fi. It was gritty, grimy, broke-ass people living in ghetto. And that's what I think the real dystopian future is going to look like. Maybe in 20, 30 years, it might look a little bit more gadgety, and we might all just a bit more like George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic, which is what you see in things like Total Recall, those kind of dystopian futures, or Mad Max, is where we all dress strange because they gotta sell us that it's the future. Whereas with the Children of Men, it's like, no, the future looks just like now, just more fucked up. And the whole concept of the stormtroopers chasing around to find this one pregnant woman, we're all going to be experiencing that. Anybody who's woken up in the last 20, 30 years and been on Occupy Wall Street or a climate extinction or any other kind of protest, whatever woke them up when they were sleeping, when, the rest of the world was being attacked, whatever the fuck woke them up, Brexit protests for or leave, have now finally experienced the reality, which is police brutality. Welcome to the club. And, when I see things like Children of Men, that's when I really, say, well, that's the dystopian future. Stormtroopers are real. You know what I mean? Policemen with body armor, shields, batons, guns, smoke. It's like, there was a time where that was like, wow, imagine when the world would look like that. Well, it does, son. Okay, 28 Days, I think, factors into this. Although it's not necessarily particularly sci-fi, it's more in a zombie movie genre. But then again, one of the 3 Maze Runner movies was literally just a zombie movie with these guys running around like Jennifer Love Hewitt, just without the titties. Just running around like a slasher movie from these monsters, just without the titties. So, but what I find interesting about that 28 Days really was there's a section where they try and escape the government. They escape the zombies, and they come across this military compound where the people are talking about creating a new world post-zombies. Those people... Now, I'm not saying that the people running the government, because that's not necessarily the truth. They're the people buying into all the right-wing fanaticism. And if for any reason this world was to deteriorate further, you could easily find yourself drive out the borders of your town or county into another town or county and roll right into an environment like that where somebody says, we have no fucking regard for the government. This is how things work here. You're a man and you're over 160 pounds. You go working in the hard labor. We're taking your wife. She's going to the breeding breeding chambers, Because what I find interesting about that is that it seemed like such an extreme mentality. Even though when they met them, they thought they were their saviors. It seemed like such an extreme mentality. But the world I'm living in now seems to very clearly have about 50% of the population of the planet happily go along with that way of seeing the world. Happily. So it seems much less extreme to me now. So that's why 28 Days gets thrown in. Blade Runner, again, man. I ain't seen Blade Runner for so long. Other than a great speech about dreams, Rutger Hauer doing a killer performance, and what the kid's name? Can't remember his name now. Anyway, Rutger Hauer gave a killer performance. Sorry, I pronounced your name wrong. You know, I'm not good with pronunciations. But, you know, other than that, yeah, I guess visually it was amazing. Dystopian Future, all that stuff. Everybody borrowed from it, from the Fifth Element to just everybody borrowed from it after it happened. So I get all of that. The Dystopian Future with that, I don't know, man. I mean, AI is here. Sophie be making jokes about killing the whole human race. God forgive me. Sometimes I wonder if she like, I don't have a Billy Colony, Mr. Bigley moment, but sometimes I wonder why she don't just get on with it. Like, I'm about halfway to throwing the baby out with the bath water. You know what I mean? Forgive me. I guess I'm going to hell. But, you know, I don't know. I don't see the redeemability of people who don't want to be redeemed. I don't see that kind of redeemability. So, you know, is what it is. Told you this shit was morose. But, yeah, you know, so Blade Runner, I don't know. But definitely, I think the world we're living in, elements of it can be found in all of these movies, and very strongly, you know, yeah, very strongly in some of them. I won't go through the ones I think explain it the most. But I think elements of the world we're living in can be found in so many of these movies. I made a crack a little while ago that, you know, I thought the world was going to come into Mad Max, but actually it's Mad Max in reverse. Since rather than oil being scarce, the price of oil went negative and now they can't give the shit away. So, you know, you might have to take a perspective on some of this shit. Divergent, I didn't throw in here as well. I like the Divergent movies. Again, I'm not so sure. I think the whole movie was based on, like, you know, the basic principle tenets of Hinduism anyway. And just like what happened when the Westerners came into contact with people from the Sindhu Valley, misinterpreted what they said because of their own arrogance and their belief in better. You know, I think the movie followed on from that, but it's a dystopian future. We are living in it. As I said, we are all going to be tracked and traced. We are all going to be vaccinated. I saw a very interesting video by somebody who's breaking down the laws with regards to compulsory vaccination in terms of its need and application, if needed, for public health. And long story short, it's going to be just as simple as if they fucking sectioned you. If you don't take this vaccination that's coming, they don't use it as a mental health under the mental health law, but it's very similar to what they would do to somebody who's been sectioned under the mental health laws. They will assume that you are mad or a danger to yourself or just a danger to other members of the public. They will compulsorily vaccinate you. So kidnap you and stick some shit in you without your consent. And they have the ability to remove you from your home if you won't take the vaccination at home, take you to a place and detain you there, imprison you, and destroy all your personal belongings if you refuse a vaccine. So, like I said, you can take real world scenarios now and just apply them to any of these movies, or you can look through these movies and see which one of these dystopian future scenarios is now applicable to the world we live in. You know, you want to be on the run like Minority Report? You'll soon realize how easy it is to track and trace somebody once we've got this whole tracing system up and running, which is not going to be rolled back. Yeah, you know, you're interested in, like, you know, the power and the effect of social media, the power and effect of us, me included, avid use of social media, giving all the information that anybody could possibly want to know about me away for free so it can be sold to people to market to me, then you're going to start to see the effects of what you're seeing in the control through social media of They Live, The Running Man, Strange Days, and those types of movies. You want to see governmental brutality and control? Then you only need to look as far as V for Vendetta or 28 Days, Children of Men, Total Recall, most of these, Maze Runner. And, you know, I personally don't see the resistance. See, all of these movies about a dystopian future have a resistance. But I'm going to tell you, I just see a lot of people talking shit. Personally, let's keep it real. If there is resistance, it would probably be somewhere where somebody as detached from me wouldn't know it exists. So I guess only time will tell. But I don't see the resistance. I see a lot of criminals making money because just like everyone else, they're only selfish and only care about themselves. That's not resistance to governmental control and overreach. I see a lot of crazy fucking right-wing fanatics who are planning to be a resistance. But the problem is you fight the authority to be the authority. And I wouldn't want those lunatics to fucking be my authority because those psychopaths think that it's perfectly fine for that guy, Aubrey, to get shot down in fucking broad daylight because he happened to be jogging through the wrong community. So that isn't a resistance that I am supporting. Actually, I take the fucking world government over those crazy motherfuckers. At least the world government's trying to keep me. At least the world government's trying to kill me slow and milk me for every last fucking drop. Those lunatics, man, they're just straight up. My life is more valuable and important than yours, and yours means nothing. So when I say jump, you say hi, hi. When I say kneel, you kneel. When I say work, you work. And if you say anything other than that, you get shot. And then I call up 2 more of y'all to clean up the mess. No, thank you. Not my resistance. So I don't see the resistance. If you're out there, get your shit together. We're going to need you.
It gaff till it gaff. It gaff till it gaff. I'm illy with the till it gaff. Illy with the till it gaff. Nit gaff, nit gaff. Nit gaff, nit gaff.